Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. I believe when we left off with the Barbarian, and we had just finished going over the Leap ability, so might as well finish up by going over the Leap Attack ability. Leap Attack has definitely seen some changes in the past couple patches, and it's no longer the ability that you might once remember. In fact, Leap Attack is actually kind of interesting now. They have changed a couple things about Leap Attack, and we need to go over some of these things right now. So first off is that Leap Attack is now no longer as slow as it used to be. And second, it now has an AoE damage effect, which comes out upon landing. The speed boost, along with the AoE damage increase, has definitely created a more interesting ability in terms of damage output, and created something that is actually usable as a main skill, which is kind of cool. I have played around with this ability in exhausting measure, and I've come to the following conclusions. Yes, it does lots of damage. I mean, I can hit for frickin' 27,000 damage in a single hit. And it also has a nice AoE damage effect, which can be focused on as well. But it does require you to build your character specifically for this effect. Now, the AoE damage effect is extremely similar. If you've ever messed around with a Warcry Barbarian, it is extremely similar to Warcry in every regard. It has the same radius. It has the same physical damage effect. However, it is less damage overall when it is maxed out. Now, I've played around with the ability, and I've managed to get the damage up to about 2,000, about 2,500 a hit. And that AoE damage effect, isn't going to be enough on its own to really, kill all the monsters. But when you leap into a group of monsters, it's certainly going to be useful. Because, when you leap in, that AoE damage effect, of course, is having a nice little bump in damage on everything nearby, which is good. It's always nice to have things dying no matter what's going on. The only thing that I noticed that was kind of not really that good about it is that it doesn't really... Oh my god, the fire. It doesn't really do enough damage to kill the monsters before you kill them. It's kind of silly. Of course, he's using a pride with firewall. My goal with this guy was just to beef him up so much that he could dish out massive amounts of damage, and I actually did it both ways. One way was to get my skills high as I could to beef up the damage amount on Leap Attack, to see if I could build a Leap Attack Barbarian that was utilizing the AoE damage effect to kill monsters. And that was very bad in terms of how much physical damage I did with my main attack. However, I was able to get the damage amount of the AoE explosion up to an extremely high amount of levels. And the trade-off here, though, is that by doing that, I ended up with really low hit damage. So you can't really have both. You can have really high hit damage and decent radial damage, but the radial damage is always going to be subpar compared to everything else. Now, another interesting thing about Leap Attack, which is very important, is that unlike with Leap Attack, it doesn't have a distance calculator. So if you've ever played around with Leap and Leap Attack, you will know that when you put 1 point into Leap and 1 point into Leap Attack, you can leap, but you can't leap very far. There's a maximum limit on your leap, and 1 point in Leap is often not enough to get you very far. For instance, if you only have level 2 leap, you can only leap this far, and level 1 leap basically gives you no leap distance, whereas Leap Attack doesn't have the same issue. Now, you do have to have a weapon in your hand. Okay, put a weapon in my hand, but when you leap with Leap Attack, there's no distance problem. So you can leap as far as you want with Leap Attack, which makes Leap Attack the far better 1-point wonder in terms of just mobility for a Barbarian. So even if you never have any intention of utilizing Leap or leap attack for their intended purposes. Leap attack is definitely something that you can use as a mobility ability on a barbarian that doesn't necessarily have a large amount of plus to skills. Now, leap is definitely better in terms of its crowd control. When you have leap maxed out, you can do absolutely crazy things like this, which is where you leap around and everything can't touch you. You literally are MC Hammer, literally singing the "Can't Touch This" song. Can't touch this. Can't touch this. Can't. Can't touch this. Now, this does not happen with leap attack. So it's very important to remember that when you're utilizing leap attack, you don't have the same safety as you do with leap. And let me just dump some points into vitality real quick so I can actually survive. When you're using leap attack, the monsters are obviously going to still try and kill you. And they very well will succeed because you're stuck inside of them. And this does make leap attack an inferior ability for jumping around and trying to clear, heavy hostile zones, whereas leap is far better in terms of its ability to clear these zones. I could even go in here naked with leap. It's just how powerful the ability is, and I could get my body back with leap because the knockback effect on leap is absolutely insane. And the shorter the duration of the leap, the easier it is to force the monsters away from where you want them to be. So keep that in mind when you're trying to consider whether you would want to go with leap or leap attack, because even though that leap attack does not require the same amount of plus to skills that leap does, it also doesn't have the safety, the innate safety that leap does. So it's important to remember that. Now, leap attack does have a synergy now. This is something that was added in, I think it was 2.4.3 or something like that. It has a 10% damage bonus per level from leap. So if you are going to build a leap attack barbarian, you're going to want to throw in 20 points into leap to get that increased damage. And that does bring leap attack up to a pretty massive 1,270%, which of course can go even higher with plus the skills and things like that if you've got a torch. Now it's 1,360, and any plus the skills that you have are definitely going to help, but you're probably better off with things like fortitude, items that are going to beef up your actual physical damage more so than your plus to skills, because I think you'll get a lot better benefit off the actual off-weapon ED if you're going for that route. And like I said, there's two different ways that you can go with leap attack. You can build up the damage itself on the hit, or you can build up the damage that comes from the AoE explosion. And to do the AoE explosion, you're going to need plus to skills. To do the physical damage hit, you're going to need off-weapon ED. And they're kind of a contradiction in terms, because if you're going to focus on that physical damage, you can't focus on the other. And we also need to talk about how leap attack actually works. So when you're out here and you're actually killing things, let me find some relatively easy monsters that won't fight back too hard. When you're out here killing stuff and you leap at a monster, what happens is when you leap at him, you hit him, and you knock him back. All right, so if you hit the monster, you will knock him back, and I seem to be completely... Hold on, I don't have any attack rating. Let me fix my skills real quick, shall I? All right, I need spear mastery. Let's go ahead and throw these dudes in here. Might as well grab some war cries while I'm at it. Beep, 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 beep. All right, so when you leap at a monster, you'll notice that he gets knocked back when you hit him. Leap attack actually has a knockback effect, which looks very similar to bash. And this was definitely not the correct place to go for easy monsters to bash around. Let's try Black Marsh. Notice that when you hit the monster, they will get knocked back. It's kind of a slow process because obviously you've got the leap through the air, which takes you a little bit of time. You've got the subsequent landing, and then the monster gets knocked away from you, which does make it a little bit more difficult to actually dish out damage to targets. This makes leap attack kind of like a really weird one bonker. That's what I usually refer to Vengeance as. Vengeance is an amazing ability. Don't get me wrong, I love Vengeance. But the damage that it outputs is insane, but at the same time, it's really slow, and you have to walk around bonking everything one at a time. And that's what Leap Attack is. It's literally a massive, like 25,000 damage with a huge bump in the amount of like double damage that you can get, because you got crit and deadly strike, and you've got crushing blow and open wounds and all that other stuff. And so by the time you actually end up hitting a target with one of these attacks, like it's usually a one bonk. Like the monsters usually die in one hit. But at the same time, it takes you so long to literally leap around attacking every target one by one that it's just kind of silly. You know, like this ability kind of really works a lot better when you're trying to kill one target, like PvP, for instance. But the problem with the ability is that you can still get targeted while you're in the air. And I feel like we need to go over some of these things about the in the air portion of this ability. You'll notice that the potions are redded out when you are in the air. You cannot switch weapons while you are in the air. You can, however, block attacks while you are in the air. So while you are in the air, if you are being targeted by somebody and you get hit, there is a possibility for you to block the attacks while you're leaping. You can also, of course, control the leap so that you don't hit anything. The duration, basically the like time that you're in the air. Obviously, if you target your leap directly at your feet, you can go very tiny distances, and it looks silly, like you're a Looney Tunes character. And then if you target really far away, obviously you can go extremely far. You can also leap without targeting a monster by holding the Alt key. However, if you land next to a monster, he will automatically target the monster that is closest to him. So you don't necessarily need to actually click on a monster to have the attack actually go off. He's just going to attack whatever is closest when he lands. So you don't have to be so pinpoint accurate about where you land and what you're targeting unless you're trying to hit a very specific monster. So like if I wanted to hit like one specific monster like this shaman over here, then I could click on him specifically. But if I wanted to just do this and just leap in place and hit targets, then I could just leap in place right here and hit as many targets as I wanted, because every time he lands, he's going to automatically hit whatever is nearby. It's also important to note that if you ever get stunned, this will actually clear your stun status if you manage to activate it. For some reason or another, the leaping process clears your stun. And there's a lot of other little tidbits of information that I'm going to read off here. So if a successful attack happens, the monster is always knocked back, okay? So it doesn't matter. It's not a variable. It is a guarantee. If your attack is successful, they will always be knocked back. Now, there is some distinction upon like how far the monster is knocked back, and it has to do with the size of the target. So smaller targets, sizes 1 to 2, get knocked back further than size 3 targets. So whenever you're fighting like pit lords or like snakes or, you know, like the larger monsters, they're not going to get knocked back anywhere near as far as the smaller monsters do. Let's see here. Of course, leap works exactly as leap does. Leap attack works exactly as leap does, in that you can jump over obstacles that you don't necessarily think that you should be able to. So it's interesting to go into some of these other zones like Flare Jungle, where you have things like the Flare Dungeon. In the Flare Dungeon and like the Swampy Pit and stuff like that, there are these grates that look like you shouldn't be able to jump through them, but believe it or not, you can. And there's a lot of stuff in this game like this that you would think you're not would be able to cross. Like, for instance, this grate right here that you can actually just leap straight through for some reason. And as you play around with leap and leap attack, you can explore these weird obstacles that most players actually can't get through, but you can. Now, granted, a teleporting sorceress can get through any of this, and you definitely can't leap directly over walls. But there are walls that players can't get through that you will be able to just simply leap through. And this is, like I said, it's something you're going to have to explore because there's lots of different things within the game that look like you shouldn't be able to do it, but in fact you actually can with leap and leap attack. The minimum distance that you can leap is actually 2 yards. Just a kind of a odd little trivia number there. I mean, it doesn't really matter all that much. But as you noticed, when I was leaping the tiniest distance that was possible, 2 yards is the tiniest distance possible. You can't leap any smaller than that. Let's see here. Chance to cast modifiers do not apply while leaping. So if you have things like chance to cast on striking and somebody hits you, nothing that you have on that is a on striking effect will work while you are in the air. And this is kind of the same thing with Whirlwind. So Whirlwind also doesn't have these things. And if you've noticed, I'm not sure if you've ever actually paid attention, but when you were looking at the way that Leap Attack reds out your potions, it's the same exact effect that Whirlwind has. So while you're in the Leap and the Leap Attack animation, you're essentially doing the same thing as a Whirlwind. Another interesting little bit of trivia that I found out, which is really annoying to other players, is that when you are leaping, you actually take the place of the place you are leaping from and the place you are leaping to at the same time. So it doesn't actually relocate you. It's not like a teleport spell or something. Like, what it does is it holds your original place where you're standing, and then as you leap, it reserves the place that you're leaping to, and your character is actually consuming 2 spaces on the board at that particular time. And this is entirely annoying to other players that you will be around, because the problem here is that, like, say you're in Maggot Lair and you leap over somebody's head. If you leap over somebody's head, they can't move backwards because you're behind them, and they can't move forwards because you're in front of them. And you can literally abuse this and literally lock a player in place in the Maggot Lair by just simply leaping back and forth in front of them and behind them, and they literally will not be able to move at all because you are literally consuming both the place in front of them and the place behind them, and they will go insane and start pulling their hair out. Do it to your friends. Movement speed and attack speed are not affected while you're actually leaping. Nothing actually affects anything while you're leaping. So, like, while you're actually leaping, there's no way to make yourself faster. There's no way to make yourself slower. You're just, that's it. You're leaping. Now, after you leap, then attack speed and things like that actually come into play for your subsequent hit. Now, the original frame length of a leap was 15 frames, and I'm not entirely sure that's the case anymore because they did speed up leap by quite a bit from the old days, so I'm not really sure. Missiles cannot normally collide with the Barbarian while he is leaping, whether they are static, like ground fires, or fired horizontally or vertically. However, he can still be hit by missiles fired by a ranged unit when directly above it, as it fires. Now, what that means is like pretend that the torch here is a ranged unit. If you leap directly over the ranged unit, the moment that you are over the ranged unit, if the ranged unit is firing, at the moment that you jump over his head, he will still hit you. So keep that in mind as you're trying to leap to safety. It's better not to leap directly over top of the ranged unit because he might still be able to land a hit on you, especially if you're naked, for instance, and you're trying to get back to your body. I think that's pretty much it when it comes to leap attack. There's really not a lot more to go over with this ability. It's a pretty simple ability. You leap in. Once you land, you make an explosion, and then you of course attack the monster, knocking them back, and that's it. And then you can of course leap again. It's a fairly cheap investment at 40 points. There are definitely a lot of other skills that have a lot higher investments, like Frenzy and Berserk, and freaking like a lot of these have freaking 40, well, I say 60 and 80 point investments. Some of them even a little bit higher. Like Frenzy, if you really wanted to max it out, that's 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 points to max out Frenzy if you really wanted to max Frenzy out. And it's just kind of insane, to be honest with you. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos. And I know this was a little bit of a long one, but Mr. Bunny Foo Foo wanted to show off his skills. And as always, keep watching.